So this week we have Shelley Duvall. Yes, another interesting reference to actors, music, and/or movie titles. But anyways, getting back to the story. So the episode begins immediately after last week's episode, as Ray decides to park in front of the fire department as he sits on a bench and flashes back over to when him and his wife are traveling over to a certain getaway. But of course he snapped out of his flashback as we see that the car is getting towed, but it again cuts over to the flashback where the exact same thing's happening. Except in the flashback, their car breaks down and they call a tow truck in order to, get that thing fixed. But in the spare time that they have in order to wait until their car's fixed, they wind up finding themselves in a sort of an ice stadium, like a little ice rink, I forget what they're called, as the both of them decide to go skating around the rink. Just because they need to have time together before Abs just decides to end it all. Which, again, if you're wondering, we do see her on the verge of her cancer. Or at least what Ray tells her is that she looks like Marilyn Monroe. But of course somehow these flashbacks coincide between each other. I mean, the tow truck references the flashback to when, the both of them are in the desert and their vehicle gets taken away as both Abs and Ray wind up finding themselves in the ring. Even Ray parking in front of the in the fire department's parking lot, or at least in front of the fire trucks, it just reminds him of when the both of them are traveling over to their destination. But let's get back to the story. So as they're in the ice rink, Abs decides to talk about her experience with her condition. And of course she gets furious about it, and Ray tries as hard as he can to comfort her, but she decides that she wants to end it all. She feels like the treatment's not doing much to her. And she makes a decision right there that she wants to end it all. Which, this is probably the cause why Abs ended her life, is because she gave up on the fight. She didn't want to do it anymore. Cutting out of the flashback, we see that Ray's specialty private investigator apparently was hiding in his trunk, as she winds up going to the vehicle that was crashed in last week's episode and retrieves the evidence from there, and of course gets back into the trunk. We sort of cut back to the head of the studio, Samantha's place, as his son winds up finding Ray and just decides to talk to him for a little bit. And in the background, they play that, fairy tale Geico commercial in the background. The ones where they tell the old fairy tales, but sort of give it this insurance twist to it. They're playing, I forget what the one was, but it was the, Jack or whatever in the story, as he winds up sort of kind of talking about, Shelley Duvall and his work and her work on The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, 1980. And just to give a quick rundown, Stanley Kubrick wanted to try to scare her as much as possible. Everybody threw mean comments. They didn't sit with her at lunch during the shoot. They were doing so much to actually scare her and actually make her filming it to make her feel authentically scared by everything that went on during the film. Samantha winds up coming down as she takes a look inside the box to find a bloodstained dress on there. As she winds up deciding to hire Ray to work for her. We don't know how long, but we can assume basically up until the end of the season, or even longer, we don't know. So anywho, Terry arrives to the boxing gym, where she winds up meeting up with Bridget, and as they talk about her boyfriend and the fact that he's in the hospital with, after going through some sort of kind of sickness that Ray sort of gave on him. As the both of them talk about in and out their histories and even talking a little bit about drugs. So Mick winds up spying on Avi as he's trying to figure out where he's going off to. He spies him at a sort of what you would call a depot, a stop if you will, a transit center or whatever. I don't know the term for these. Mick winds up, keeping on his tail, making sure he's a good distance away, but something off happens, but I'll get to that in a moment. Another flashback happens with Ray as Abs winds up telling both Bridge and Connor about her decision, which upsets the both of them. Well, not to Connor at first, as he just goes up into his room, does a couple of push-ups listening to some hard music. But of course Ray sort of kind of snaps him out of it, but Connor winds up just punching him square on the nose as Ray just comforts him about trying to make him at least feel alright, or at least try to make him calm about what's happening, because, losing a mother is a very serious thing. Even losing parents is a rough patch to go through. Mick winds up finding Avi in a facility where, dry cleaner clothes or whatever is being hung, as Mick tries to find him, but unfortunately Avi knocks him out and places him somewhere where possibly it could be where Avi winds up meeting for his deals. So Ray winds up getting a call from the head of the studio, or the husband or whatever, as he realizes and finds out about Natalie's disappearance and where she's currently at. As of course he decides to visit her and try to get her to go back to the studio, which that doesn't work out too well, as Ray kicks him out, as, at least for the moment being, Natalie listens to some Abbott and Costello, because they need some sort of film to play in the background. After Ray basically denies him and basically kicks him out of the apartment, he winds up hanging himself in a little apartment, and of course they decide not to tell her at all, or whatever their pick was. They just decide to leave him alone and just let whoever find him there. Terry winds up finding himself in church as he winds up feeling sorry that he wasn't there to save Abby in her crisis, and the fact that her decision was on the verge of dying. It was tough for him. And of course, feeling sorry and the fact that he's in church, he winds up deciding to go into a confession booth and talk about a little bit of his experience and just how he feels the troubles that he's gone through in the past months or so with Abby being gone. But we'll be able to see that as it comes up next week. Let's move onwards. Ray winds up finding himself making a deal with Samantha to keep her off the set, especially since her pregnancy is a big deal. And we move onwards to Avi, as of course he winds up taking Mick to a deal or something that's going on. We're not sure where the location is, especially since Mick's inside the trunk, as police wind up coming in and somebody else winds up taking him away. To where? Who knows? So Natalie's just sitting back, relaxing, and just watching some films in Ray's apartment. One of which, oddly enough, since I recognized its track so much, was in fact Night of the Living Dead. Oh, why? Why? They just pull that up and it's just like, rest in peace, George A. Romero. The legendary film director behind Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. All these films. It's just so sad to see something they just put up in the show, like months ahead as they were editing this stuff. They have all the episodes set and prepared for release, and it's just like, they put it up and I'm just like, oh rest in peace, whoever you were, or George A. Romero and your great films. The timing of these, man. Just the timing. That's what this show has just recently been. Timing. Ray winds up flashing back to when Ray's walking off the family dog outside while drinking, as he winds up seeing Nat and her little Chihuahua dog? I don't remember the breeds of these things. As we see Ray doing the whole in-out. I'm just going to leave it at that. And he returns home to see Abby fast asleep. But we cut back to reality as Natalie is told by Samantha to keep away from the studio and that no one will interfere with the production or her or anything of that matter. And the episode ends with Mick being driven away, Marie stuck with the daycare teacher person? I don't know. And of course, Samantha looks at all of her trophies in such stand-up-ish ways, like almost looking menacing. And that, my friends, is where the episode ends. We are now at the halfway point of this series. Now we gotta think of questions. What will happen to Mickey, and where is he being dragged off to? What will happen to Marie? What will happen to Bunchy? What did Terry tell the church people inside the inside the confession booths? What will happen to Natalie and Samantha and all these people? And what title next week will make a reference to a character, an actor, actress, movie, TV show, song, whatever? What will happen next week? We'll just have to find out as Ray Donovan returns next Sunday on Showtime. But also these either Monday or Tuesday. Depends on time and editing, of course. So, see you guys later for the all-new episode of Ray Donovan. But if you stay until Saturday, you'll see yourselves watching the new episode, Initial Opinion, of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Anywho, I say toodaloo, and rest in peace, George A. Romero.